The AG2 team keeps on innovating, and this one is extra exciting because it seems like a huge breakthrough in terms of performance and ability of agents to actually produce useful output and self-validate themselves. I'm going to cover in this short video a blog post by the AG2 team. Afterwards, we will see how this new framework or new mechanism performed in research, and actually comparing between this new framework to other methods of optimizing and building agents. And at the end, I will show you a test that I did on my own for a business use case. The results seem very promising. The idea is actually ingenious. So yeah, very excited to share it with you guys. So basically, let's zoom out and give you some context. So I have many people approach me and tell me, yeah, well, what is the use case for agents? How is it different from LLMs? It's all hype. I even have a friend of mine that keeps on saying that the agents are the new NFTs. So I started actually kind of ignoring him. I do agree that many times agents, which are basically in a basic level, are just being bottlenecked by the output quality of the LLM. Sometimes they produce hallucinations. There is a lack of accuracy. If you don't have a human in the loop, you can't completely rely on agents. That being said, the models are evolving, so the output is becoming better. Another thing to keep in mind is the fact that we actually need to be able to prompt the agents correctly. And there is also a huge lack of, there is a misalignment of expectations. People think that the agents will just appear and out of the blue solve everything without us teaching them, refining the process, or building the automation workflow. And this is especially something that I've noticed with people who are not experienced with building automations. I also had this notion like 5 or 6 years ago when I just started building automations, that once I build an automation, it's going to be a set and forget, and I can just check off this task for my daily routine because I have an automation. But this is actually not accurate. Automations keep on getting broken and they need to be optimized. As far as I see it, an automation is just an accelerator, a lever that we can pull in order to have code work for us, but it's never set and forget. So this is also something that needs to be said regarding agents. They are not set and forget, and there is the expectations are not correct. That being said, the AG team is offering a new approach, which is called tree of thought, which is very powerful, and it does allow us to get better output from our agents. And let's check first their blog post, and then we will see a research that they published. And again, afterwards, I will show you a simple test that I did. Before I dive into this, my wife always keeps on reminding me that I have to tell people to subscribe during the video and not only at the call to action. So if you guys are new here and are interested in data-driven automations, stuff related to AI and stuff related to agents, make sure to subscribe. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go to read the blog post. By the way, if you guys are not aware, this blog post by the AG2 team is pretty amazing. They have great content, especially for those of you who would like to dive deeper into the technicalities. So basically, the AG2 team, formerly known as Autogen, presents a reasoning agent. And this is a illustration that we will come to later. The TLDR is basically we introduce a reasoning agent, an AG2 agent that implements tree of thought, reasoning with beam search to solve complex problems. I will explain everything in a moment. Don't worry if you don't understand the technical jargon. Reasoning agent explores multiple reasoning paths in parallel and uses a grader agent to evaluate and select the most promising paths. The exploration trajectory and thought tree can be saved locally for further analysis. Now, basically, the key idea behind the reasoning agent is first, we generate multiple possible reasoning steps at each point. Then we evaluate these steps with a grader agent. We keep track of the most promising path with a beam search, and then we continue exploring those paths while pruning less promising ones. So we have the thinker agent, which generates possible next steps, and we have a grader agent, and we have the beam thought. So the process works as follows. The thinker agent generates multiple possible next steps from the current state. The grader evaluates on a scale of 1 to 5 each path and assigns a score, and then the beam search selects the top K path, the most promising path based on these scores, and the process repeats itself until we find a solution. So here's an example. Let's say I asked the reasoning agent, let's say I presented a coding challenge. So the thinker agent is going to provide 3 different alternatives for solving this coding challenge. Then the grader is checking out these 3 alternatives and scores them. And it also gives like the logic why he gave this score. And then it selects the most promising alternatives. And after selecting the most promising alternatives, the thinker agent goes 1 level deeper to the next step, and then he comes up with more ideas. So, and you can define the depth and the beam size. So the beam size is how many ideas in each level are going to be selected moving forward. And the depth is basically how many steps are going to be taken in this whole tree. So as you can see here, the thinker proposed 3 ideas. The grader selected this idea and this idea. He believed that these are better than this one. Then the thinker proposed more alternatives under this step. The grader didn't like it, but the thinker also proposed next steps for this route, and then the grader did like it. So the thinker went 1 more level deeper, and he proposed the final path, which is basically the final solution for solving this coding problem, assuming this is a coding problem. Afterwards, I will show you how I just asked marketing related stuff. Now, it's kind of similar to a chain of thought, but it's not exactly chain of thought. For those of you who don't know what is chain of thought, it's basically we have a 0 prompt shot is when we just ask the model to do something, write a headline for me. This is a 0 shot prompt. We don't provide any more data, and we don't provide examples, and we don't cue the model to think step by step. When we want to create a chain of thought, we are basically telling the model, please come up with a headline for me, let's say for selling automation services. Think through step by step before providing the headline. So this is called chain of thought, because basically what the model is going to do is going to break down the problem to many steps and eventually give us the output, which is the relevant headline. So this is what is being used under the hood with the O1 solution by OpenAI. And because it takes these steps, this is why the O1 is more expensive and also takes slightly longer to generate a solution or an output, because it breaks down these steps. Now, let me just see if I covered everything that I wanted from the blog post, because I think I want to move to the research, because the research contains deeper explanations and also a comparison between 0 shot prompt to chain of thought and to the tree of thought, which is the new way that they generate output. A few cool things that I want to mention before diving into the research is afterwards you can see the visualization of the reasoning process. So you can see the whole conversation, which is great because it kind of gives you, it's like brainstorming, passively brainstorming with the model and seeing what it proposes. And if anything grabs your attention, you can use it afterwards in a different iteration. And obviously you can also use these reasonings for training or refining your own fine-tuned model. So the results dataset can be used to fine-tune a base model or train rewards model or analyze and improve reasoning patterns of the agents. The key benefits of this is systematic exploration. Instead of committing to a single reasoning path Like with the chain of thought, reasoning agents explore multiple possibilities systematically. The grader provides quality control, which is very crucial. Basically, this way, if you want to reduce the human in the loop element, we basically have this QA agent baked into the process. Obviously, there are limitations for using this because it's going to be also more expensive and it's going to take longer to generate the response. But eventually, if there is the performance matters here and your reputation is on the line, or the problem is very complex and you need, you can't allow yourself, like there is no room for error, you do it would be great to have this quality control. And there is also this level of transparency, because in opposing to the O1 model by OpenAI, which you don't see exactly the chain of thought, in this case, there is transparency because you can see the whole conversation between the agents. Now let me move to the research. I'm not going to go over everything, but this is just an example of what we discussed before. It's an illustration of different mechanisms. So this is like the input-output prompting. I call it zero-shot prompt, but it's not, zero-shot prompt is basically a prompt in which you don't give examples, so I was slightly inaccurate. This is the chain of thought prompt. This is how O1 performs. This is a self-consistency with chain of thought, so it's slightly different. And this is the tree of thought, which is what the AG2 team is offering. Basically, as you can see here, we present input or a complex task. Then the tree, the grader, is providing grades for every level. And based on the levels, based on the grades, we are going deeper into the tree until one path is selected, because eventually in each level, as you can see here, in each level, the proposed solution was selected by the grader. So let's go down to the results that they were able to achieve. So experiments, they did a few experiments. One was a bit more like coding related, game of 24. So it's a mathematical reasoning challenge. The other one was a creative writing challenge, and another one was a 5x5 crossword challenge. And obviously, I'm not going to dive into this, but you can select, as I said, the beam size, which is basically selecting how many cells are being selected in each level or moving forward to the next step. And you can also select the depth size, basically how deep, how many layers do you want to go down the tree. So this is the beam size. Here it's 2 and the depth is 3. Now let me just show you the table of results, because this is the interesting part. So these are the results. Samples failed at each step. So tree of thought with the beam size 5. So you can see here the results were way better in terms of how many correct iterations there were. And as you can see here, the success rate. So input-output prompt yielded 7.3% success rate. Chain of thought with prompt yielded only 4%. And the tree of thought with beam size 5 yielded 74%. And obviously, you have to test it on your own, and all the caveats and disclaimers of how to do research correctly. But in general, this is a huge improvement in comparison to the most simple way of prompting. This is exactly how they structured the research. So if you're interested, you can read more into this. This is another, this is for the creative writing task. You can see here the success rate. And let's go down to the results and related work. So basically, this is kind of like the bottom line. Let's see. Okay. So planning and decision making. Smart planning and decision making are critical to achieving predefined goals. As they are trained on vast amount of world knowledge and human examples, large language models are known to have already absorbed rich common sense that makes it possible to propose reasonable plans conditioned on problem setting and environmental states. Our proposed tree of thought approach extends existing planning formulations by considering multiple potentially feasible plans simultaneously at each problem-solving step and proceeding with the most promising ones. The integration between thought sampling and value feedback organically integrates planning and decision-making mechanisms. So the feedback organically is the grader, which would be interesting, by the way, to try to have two different models, do this and see if it yields better results, kind of like the architect and execution framework that is proposed by the ADER team for coding better. This is something that I want to test later on. Anyway, let's keep on moving. On the other hand, traditional decision-making procedures usually require training dedicated reward and policy models as in reinforcement modeling. Whereas we use the large language model itself to provide the value estimates for decision-making. Self-reflection. Using LLMs to assess the viability of their own prediction is becoming an increasingly important procedure in problem solving. Introduced the self-reflection mechanisms in which large language models provide feedback to their generation's candidates. It improves large language model code generation accuracy by injecting feedback messages generated by the large language model itself based on its code execution results. Let's move on. The autogen team also proposed back in the days the critique agent, which I think is also something very ingenious that you should definitely bake into your agentic frameworks. Just to remind you, in case you don't know, the critique or the agent eval is basically when you ask the agent to produce something, an output, then you use an agent critique and to generate parameters for scoring the output. So let's say there is I ask the agent to generate a headline, then I have the agent critique generates parameters on how you can judge a headline. So the amount of curiosity, how catchy it is, and how elegant it is, for example. Then we have another agent which grades the headline based on these parameters. And then we have a validation agent that basically if the score is high enough and it doesn't do anything that doesn't do anything that was disallowed initially by the person who built the agentic workflow. So for example, let's assume that we have a headline that has a high score on all parameters, but still it does something that is inaccurate, that we don't want it to have published. So we have this validation level, which basically makes sure that the output can be shown or can be published or is good enough. So just another layer of safety. So anyway, closing this short explanation about critique, it's way easier when you have the illustration in front of you. I'm just trying to explain to you guys as I'm streaming this, out of my memory. So I might have some inaccuracies. But please don't be too judgmental. Anyway, let's see. Similar to our method, self-eval decoding, never mind, program guidance. Our proposal is also related to recent advancements that organize LLM's behavior with systematic procedures. I don't think it's crucial. Okay, so there are a few limitations, obviously, which we are not going to go into them at the moment. And yeah, I guess if you're interested in learning the technicalities and the nuances, I highly recommend that you check out this research. Now let me show you a simple example that I did on my end. I just took the notebook and I asked it what would be the best way to use Facebook ads to test different automation and their demand. Oh, by the way, I also think that if you're interested in more like understanding technicalities and what's under the hood, make sure to check the code and the system message of the agent grader. Although it's nothing crazy, but still, it's I always like checking out if it's an open source project. I always like checking out the code and the system messages and how the people who build the framework, how they use, what is the format they're using for the system message, if they're using any descriptions of the agents, stuff like this. So make sure to check out in the GitHub repository the system message for the grader. Anyway, coming back to my example, so I asked it to generate what would be the best way to use Facebook ads to test different automations and their demand. Obviously, this is a subjective thing that cannot be really measured, but I just wanted to mess around with this and also show you the examples. I did a few more of these, like how can I generate a great cold email to a busy CEO, and it was interesting to see exactly the chain of thought or the tree of thought of the agent. Now let me show you how it looks like over here. So what would be the best way to use Facebook ads to test different automation and their demand? So the reason agent is asking what are the possible next steps. Then we have the train of thought thinker, which basically does a reflection. So first of all, it says the previous steps do not show explicit pathway. So the initial analysis of how to utilize Facebook ads for testing different automations may require further detailing. It's essential to understand the specific types of automation suggested, as well as aligning the audience you wish to target. Without a clearer plan, this approach might lead to ineffective ad spending. Now he proposes 4 possible options. And this is important because we need to remember these options because they will come up again and again and again next. So the first option is define specific automations to test based on user needs and industry benchmarks. The second alternative is segment the target audience for each automation variation to measure performance metrics accurately. The third option is create ad copy and visuals tailored to each automation benefits to attract the right audience effectively. And another option is use A/B testing for different ad formats and strategies to find most effective approach. Now, what we have here, let me scroll up. Okay, so then we have the reason agent, which is basically telling the tree of thought grader to grade each of the options. So the first option is define specific automations to test based on user needs. As you can see here, this is the first step of the first option, and it is asking it to rate it, and it provides a score of 4 on a scale of 1 to 5. The first step in the trajectory shows a strong understanding of the necessity to have a focused approach by defining the specific automations to test. Next, the reasoning agent proposes the second option. Segment the target audience for each automation variation to measure performance metrics accurately. And the grader provides a score of 5 and also tells us why. Then the reason agent proposes the third alternative. We get a score of 4. And then the reason agent proposes the fourth alternative, which is use A/B testing for different ad formats and strategies to find the most effective approach. Then it gave it a 5. Now, based on this, we have 3 different branches that got a score of 5. One got the score of 4. 2 got the score of 4 and 2 got the score of 5. And now we are just taking the branches that got the score of 5, and we are going one level deeper, asking the tree of thought agent, the thinker, to generate the second steps for each one of them. As you can see here, what would be the best way to use Facebook ads to test different automations? This was like the resource question. And this is the first step. Segment the target audience for each automation variation to measure performance metrics accurately. Let's see. And now it proposes the second step. Define the specific metrics of success for each automation variation, such as CTR rates or conversion rates, to guide the analysis. And the tree of thought grader provides a score of 5 to this. So as you can see, now we have another branch, another suggestion, and we get also a score for this. And then this iteration, this process keeps on going deeper and deeper and deeper. More steps are created. Let's see. As you can see here, wait, step 3, etc. Until it kind of gets the best approach. Let me show you the bottom line. So as you can see here, step 3, step 4. I don't think we have step 4. Okay, so that's it. So this is the best way. And eventually we have the best way. The best way to use Facebook ads to test different automation and their demand involves the following step. First, we segment the audience, divide the target audience based on demographics, interests, or behaviors to ensure that each automation variation is tested against a specific group for more accurate performance measurement. The second step is define success matrix. Establish clear metrics for success of each automation, like CTRs, conversion rates, or ROAS, which will guide your analysis and decision making. And then we create an A/B test campaign for each automation variation. This involves running identical ads with one variable change, for example, the automation message, to directly compare performance and identify which automation resonates best with the audience. By following these tips, you can effectively gauge, or however you pronounce it, the demand and performance of different automation approaches through Facebook ads. This is amazing because it's very useful, and it's actually a great way to test the research question. I'm curious to see if we just use this research question in ChatGPT as is, what happens? Let's see. What would be the best way to use Facebook ads to test different automation and their demand? So this is one alternative. Let's also use O1 to see. O1 new chat. Let's see. Okay. So to effectively assess the demand for various automation solutions using Facebook ads, consider the following structured approach. Define clear objective, identify target audience, develop distinct landing pages, implement A/B testing, leverage Facebook automated tools, monitor and analyze performance, iterate based on insights. Okay, I mean, pretty generic. I'm not sure if it's significantly different from what the tree of thought offered. Let's see here. What is O1 offering? Clearly define your test hypothesis, segment your ad sets by automation type, use consistent creative templates but vary the messaging, target the same audience segment initially, use small test budgets and optimize for relevant conversion events, leverage dynamic creative testing, monitor early indicators, evaluate engagement, and identify the winners and iterate. Awesome. I mean, this is a very broad question, and also the responses are pretty broad, and again, this is very subjective, so not necessarily the best example, but I just wanted to show you an example with like a real life business use case that is also relevant, I mean, for me and for marketers that hopefully are watching the channel. I believe that this train of thought is very powerful, and when utilized correctly, especially if you are using more agents or perhaps adding like a code execution ability, could be interesting. Another thing that I would like to test is have two different models, one for the grading and one for the thinking. And basically, it's probably more powerful with objective stuff that you can actually measure. Otherwise, I'm not sure if it's not for strategy stuff. I'm not sure if I won't use just O1, but I need to play with it a bit more in order to understand the difference. Anyway, the downside of this is you're using API calls unless you're using a local model. In opposing to just using O1 via the chat interface, it's going to cost $20 monthly. But obviously, if it is better output, I'd be happy to pay them, to pay the relevant models, whether it's using Claude, Anthropic, or if we're using OpenAI. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Just a short, not so short to be honest, an explanation about the tree of thought process, which is an amazing innovation by the AG2 team. If you're interested, check out the blog post and the research paper. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below with your feedback, any criticism, ideas for improvement. It's all welcome, all good. And until next time, guys, keep on automating.